Hello, hello. Welcome to the Bucket Bros. I am your co-host, Ronnie West. Joined with me, as always, is
Bobby Marcica.
how you
Thanks for
doing, buddy?
joining us, folks.
Yeah.
I'm great. I'm great. I can't complain. It's a little late over here, but I'm jazzed, man. I'm feeling it. We got
Yes, indeed.
we we got regular season basketball behind us. We got play in, play off basketball ahead of us. I consider the play in playoffs. I mean, I hate
It's
that it just like counts
postseason.
for nothing. Yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah, exactly. It's basically a playoff game.
Yeah. The NBA with all these new games that don't count for any like all-time point. Because is that the case? Like the NBA Cup and then like these play-in, like any of those stats do not go as a part of your like all-time scoring.
I I'm gonna eat my words for this. I think the play in game actually does count towards postseason uh, totals, but I'd
Okay.
have to double check that.
Yeah, get on that. We're going to quiz you about it next time. In any
Great.
case, the season is over. We're going to fact check everything that we ever said about this season. Just kidding. No, that's too much work for me to kind of go through and edit. So anything that we said that was terribly wrong will just be in the archives and you guys can screenshot it for us. So, uh, as we were kind of talking pregame, there was a bunch of games towards the end of the season, about 30 games in 3 days, but there was really only one game of significance. And so I think that's probably the only one that you really want to get into just because it was the one that had the most meaning. And it kind of was, it lived up to the hype. And that was the Clippers and the Warriors that went down, was that Sunday afternoon? Like all the games were super early, so um,
Yeah, yeah, very early games. I'm not sure what was behind all that, but
they had
I
to
don't.
make
Yeah,
way
just
for the Masters ceremony and stuff. I'm
ah
assuming
that makes sense. Yep, there it is.
CBS. Uh, so yeah, so what were your takeaways from this game? The Clippers come away with it. They end up with the 5 seed. Um, the Warriors go down in overtime. I don't have the score in front of me. Um, but it was a fairly close game. I think they lost by like it ended up probably like between 3 and 5. Um, but it kind of was the same things that we have been chiming the bell, and a lot of people have, was who's going to do the scoring outside of Jimmy. Obviously, this past game, I think it was both Jimmy and Steph had over 30. Um, Pods, that name is always going to get me. Pazlesny or Pazlesky. I'm whatever.
I don't think it has an L in it. I don't think there's an L in it.
Pods, whatever it might be. It always gets me. I put lots of extra, as my wife will attest. I put lots of extra consonants and stuff in the different words. But I think Pods had 19, so that was a good spark from somebody else on the team. And I think Draymond had double figures. Otherwise, once again, there really wasn't much else from the rest of this team. But I am curious to hear kind of what your takeaways were from this kind of Clippers getaway. It kind of puts them in a much better position than having to deal with the play-in tournament like the Warriors now have to.
Well, I mean, just a quick touch on one thing you said real quick was Draymond being in double figures. Golden State, as you were alluding to, needed all of those double figures.
Yes.
He had a great shooting night. He went 4 for 6 from outside, and he's had a few of those. It's seemingly in like big moments. Draymond's had a few heaters
There was
where
I was gonna say I'm sorry to interject. As soon as
on
I
his threes. He's
threw it
definitely
over to you,
celebrating it when it happens. But yeah,
sorry, we had a glitch there. I was just surprised. Yeah, Draymond, he had more threes at one point than Harden did, like in the midst of the game. I could not believe that all of a sudden he had three, and I think Harden hit his third about a minute or two later. So, but yeah, the Warriors and Draymond with those, like you said, needed to get everything out of him.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, had he not had a shooting night like he did, this game wouldn't have even gone to overtime. Um, I, I think one thing that certainly stands out was how well James Harden played. He, yeah, I mean, 39 points, 10 assists. He definitely led the way down the stretch, sort of opposing the playoff Harden that we expect. Just sort of like this, like, I don't know, 85, 90% version of himself that just like doesn't quite get him over the hump. But in this case, it was very much so. Not only that, but he had a dozen points in overtime, 12 of 13. Is that right? In overtime for the LA Clippers. He scored the first 10 of them anyway in overtime, and yeah, that's essentially what helped seal the game for them. I mean, certainly don't sleep on Kawhi. His 33 points on 20 shots. He just continues to be this like sneaky tough guy to deal with. Every time that you say no, 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 Kawhi can't keep doing this. He's not the guy. He's anytime you get skeptical that injury has finally prevailed and taken over his career, he will show you that he is yet another just, I mean, absolute go-to option, and kind of gets to his spots, gets whatever he wants. He ultimately had a shot that was not near the rim, but trying to get close to the rim, that was stopped by Draymond in regular time. That was a big stop for him. Not before Draymond in overtime missed, or I'm sorry, in regular time missed one of the most important layups that he could have had. Sorry, that was overtime. My bad, folks. In overtime, when Draymond missed that layup, a lot of people comparing it to Ben Simmons, um, where he sort of like, except in this case, he tried to make the bucket, but he sort of like contorted his body almost. I don't know if it was to get the foul or afraid of the foul, and yeah, ultimately missed the bucket that would have tied the game in overtime for them before the free throw game played out. Steph had a good shooting night, but he had a lot of costly turnovers, 8 in total, but there was a couple in clutch moments, both towards the end of regulation and the end of overtime, where I don't know. He was just dribbling into guys, throwing the ball into traffic, doing stuff that he tends to do. That's infuriating. Some of these just awful turnovers that he has. But you expect him to be like a sturdy presence in clutch moments. But with his track record, eventually one of these moments is going to come out during these tough times. Not the first time we've seen it, but yeah, this was a big one that he certainly wished he could get back.
Yeah, it wasn't just him. I think Pazemski,
Pajemski. You're killing me,
Pajemski. And then
dude.
no, there's like you're adding in a J and a G in there. Like I get the D and Z. Anyways, I apologize to
You're,
the.
you're right. Maybe somebody Polish might be able to
I was gonna
educate us a
say
little bit better. I'm sure if
yes.
you really broke it up linguistically, it would maybe the D and the Z could come out a little bit more. But for
In
now,
any case,
Pajemski. I haven't
yes,
heard him fight that pronunciation anyway.
yeah. Uh but him and I feel like Buddy Hield both had and Curry all had some within that fourth quarter had some bad turnovers. Um, just as bad as me speaking. Um, and yeah, they just couldn't hit any of the shots. It was the bad turnovers and missed shots in the fourth quarter and overtime that just seemed to pile up, and just now they're going to be facing the Grizzlies, and I feel like they just and obviously I should probably check this, but then they just beat up on the Grizzlies recently, just like everybody else did. Um, but this does set the Clippers up against the Nuggets. What are your takeaways and what do you think positive now looking at the Clippers who I had at like 15 and have snuck up within the last seemingly like 2 to 3 weeks from like the 9 spot into the 5. So, do they have a chance to kind of challenge with the Nuggets? What are your thoughts kind of the way that they're sitting?
I think the Clippers surprised everybody this year. When we were doing the over unders, I think they were at like 33 and a half or something like that. And I didn't want to touch that with a 29 and a half foot pole. So a 33.5-foot pole. Dang it, it was right there. I missed it. But yeah, because I'm like this team like could. I kind of thought that their season was going to turn out a little bit like the Suns. Honestly, all of us did. And and on the contrary, James Harden has. I mean, he hasn't had like one of the most prolific seasons of his career, but he has showed up this year, and he's been that sturdy point guard for them. And then Kawhi, he's had to ramp up slowly throughout the year. He played 47 minutes in this game, second only to James Harden. But and along the way, they got scoring punches from Norm Powell, who can be considered for most improved player potentially. Might be an MIP.
I've actually heard lots about Zubats getting that just because of his, whether it's the fact that he's stayed fairly healthy this season, and it's just one of
Yeah.
those. He's all like you've mentioned last time. He's just that big dude who just kind of sits there and like he's been there forever. And every time you're watching, you always see him that peel off of the screen and roll, and just always ends up either getting an offensive rebound or getting a little alley oop kind of play. And he's just so consistent with his play in the paint. So I that's the only thing where I started hearing when I was watching the game. They were mentioning that he's one of the top contenders for that. But I'm like, did he have a big injury? Did he all of a sudden go away? Like, what makes him most improved just because he's converting a few more dunks and alley oops this year? Like, I just think, like, the screen and roll play, is he hitting more shots? Like, is his overall play any different than what it's been in the past, besides maybe a little more consistent?
Well, you're right in that Ivica Zubats is essentially stealing bandwidth from Norm Powell in terms of the most improved player award. Not that anybody's like dream come true is getting the most improved player,
Yeah.
but
More
yeah,
that there's a lot of bandwidth about it.
and that go well. Anytime two good players on the same team, they tend to steal votes from each other, right? That's how this goes. We see it on All Star. We see it. Uh, a lot of times we'll see it in like All NBA or MVP voting as well. But yeah, and that just goes to show you just how many guys on the squad have absolutely popped, at the right time. But yeah, Ivica Zubats, he's certainly somebody who I think is going to be on the All NBA ballots, and he's just been an anchor in this defense. Not that he hasn't been in the past, but just in particular, he has really shown up this season, and naturally. Any big guy who plays along James Harden is just going to look just that much better, just like any big guy playing against the likes of Luka. He's going to have that multiplier effect on them, and so yeah, he's kind of always been a double double, just like an automatic, but yeah, it's definitely been more pronounced this year. Um, yeah, and I think he knows. He was on the Hoop Collective podcast even recently, and even he knows that he was able to add some elements to this game that really helped him step up. I mean, I, one thing that has to be mentioned is just like the way that the Clippers, they saw an opportunity in signing Derrick Jones Jr. at the beginning of the season, which ended up being a hit. Not that anybody was necessarily sleeping on him, because he looked great for the Mavericks last year as well. I mean, if anything, the Mavs would have loved to keep him. But having him, I think he initially was in the starting lineup, but it looks like recently he's been coming off the bench for them, because Chris Dunn. Let's talk about another guy who's just absolutely popping late in his prime. Chris Dunn, who we always have known as like this like lockdown defender, but a little bit one dimensional. Well, he flows perfectly with this team. But I mean, to go back to the other part of your question, you mentioned how do I think that they're gonna fare moving into the playoffs here? Well, you said what are they? I have to look at it again. You said they're the 6th seed. They're about to play the Nuggets. Is that what's happening? I'm not even
They're the
looking at the standings right now.
they're the 5 seed, yes,
Oh, they're the
but they're
5
the
seed about to
fourth
play the
seed.
4 seed Nuggets. That's right.
Yeah.
Um, so well, I guess one thing that does bother me about this Clippers team, I do think to some degree that Kawhi is going to sort of cancel out the deficiencies we tend to see from Harden in the playoffs. I think because I mean Kawhi is the better playoff player, and you don't really see Harden I mean, throughout his career, has he really ever even played with guys like that? I mean, obviously Durant, yes, in his early OKC days, and then when he was a six man, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then Durant again in the failed Nuggets experiment, but that was for like 7 seconds that he had a chance to actually play any
Well,
games with him. So,
did him and Westbrook do anything with the Rockets?
do you consider Westbrook, uh, either Westbrook or Chris Paul? Do you consider them the better offensive players or better players of that squad? It was still a hardened team, you know. So now he's coming into the playoffs as not the best player on his team. He's not the best player, and he's certainly not the best like clutch time offensive player. Or, I'm sorry, playoff esque player on his squad. I mean, Kawhi all the way. Kawhi is
Yeah,
like
no.
Kawhi was born to be a Finals MVP. I don't know. I don't know how his set of skills fit so perfectly together, and how he can have quiet regular seasons and then just march a team all the way down the stretch. But do I necessarily think that that's
Possession
something
game.
Kawhi is going to do? Yeah, I mean that's part of it, and you know, he wins in a lot of ways that other players don't. But do I think that's necessarily going to happen this time around? No, I think you know he's you know just with his health at this point is just too unreliable. But ultimately, I think the Clippers just do not have enough depth. One thing I noticed in that Warriors game is Bojan Bogdanovic. He was getting targeted just time after time after time. Every time I saw him on the court, I feel like the minutes of this game I actually did get to watch was him being on the court, just being hunted by the Warriors, and he was like, it was embarrassing. He played 16
That
minutes and had 5 fouls.
that was something I did notice and pick up was that he was guarding Jimmy like three straight possessions, and Jimmy
Oh,
got like a
Jimmy was
went by him.
salivating every time it was
Oh
coming
yeah,
down the
went
court.
went right by him and dunked at least two or three times in a row. And this is where I do have to give Harden props because he then stepped up and took on Jimmy on defense. I was like, oh, okay. Like I was assuming it was going to be Kawhi, and so and for whatever reason they made a stop or two, and so I have it's for how long I've questioned Harden's defensive mindset, and even in and granted it's little things and whether it's the way that today's game is where you pitch the three and then automatically you're taking 4 or 5 steps back, like that's usually what drives coaches and just like older players crazy because it's like if you're going to take a shot, like one, you think it's so confident that it's going to go in that you're not going to follow your shot and go for the rebound. So that's what always drove me crazy with him, and he does that so much. And so that's at least, and I noticed it in this game, and that's the reason why I'm saying it because it always enrages me to just watch somebody like take a take a fadeaway shot with nobody on them, and then all of a sudden you're completely out of the play. But I think that him being that secondary player, I like you said, it could be the key thing where he's not reliant on being the one who needs to make the basket for that possession or needs to figure out what to do within this possession because Kawhi will have that. He can set up or be ready to take the pass and hit the shot. So I think this is a good role for him. I think the Nuggets is a very interesting matchup, the way that that plays out. And I don't know what their season matchup was, but to me, this seems like it could be a pretty fun matchup.
Yeah, you know, I between the slew of possibilities that they could have got, the Nuggets, Lakers, or the Rockets. I take that back. I'm sorry. Between the Nuggets or the Lakers, the only way they would face the Rockets or OKC is if they slipped into the play-in. But amongst those two, you know, I don't think they necessarily hate playing the Nuggets, who you know have their new coach has got the best. It's got the best winning percentage in the NBA right now as they finish the season undefeated with him. But was it 2 games, 3 games, and 3 games? They went on a 3 game win streak with their new coach. Best
As I
best
was
record in
complaining about
basketball.
before against teams that basically like shut the everything off with the Rockets, and I guess I'll give them props for the Grizzlies game.
Yeah, but the Nuggets, I mean, their defense has just been kind of up and down, and they have a little bit of a smaller backcourt, and obviously, Jokic, who's a, I mean, he's a savvy defensive player, but he's no Ivica Zubats, right? Down near the hoop there, and I think I'm still picking Nuggets in this one. Again, Clippers depth just not enough for me. I mean, you get past the starting five and you run into Derek Jones Jr., and then we've already talked about Bojan Bogdanovic, and then who's coming in next? Ben Simmons. Uh, yeah, Amir Coffey. I mean, it gets real thin very
Don't be,
quickly.
do not besmirch my Minnesota Gopher. I love the Minnesota field with Chris Dunn and Amir Coffey on the team. I was shocked that he was in the league and much less a really good role player. Like I knew he was a good shooter. I was just surprised to see him make an NBA roster, and good for him. No, and I'm glad to see that he's the couple games I have seen him play against the Timberwolves. Um, he did good work, so good for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's played a full season. It's been mostly backup minutes, but he's I mean, he's been knocking down shots. He's been a good shooter
Mm-hmm.
this year. His shooting, wow. 24 minutes a game. He's averaging just shy of 10 points a game for the season. But I don't mean to go off on such an Amir Coffee tangent, but his shooting splits this year were
Please
essentially 40, 47, 41, and 89. That's spectacular. Way to
go
go! Way to go,
Gophers.
Amir Coffee.
Yeah.
Another most improved player of the year award candidate coming from the Clippers. Yeah,
Stealing votes from Norm Powell.
yeah,
Well,
stealing that bandwidth.
yeah. Do you want to get
That
in?
coffee shop bandwidth. What's
Oh,
that?
yeah. Let's get into this play in tournament. So, here is our
There we
SoFi
go.
play in tournament. So, now the matchups, for the most part, are set, minus the seventh and eighth seed, which will be determined by these next 6 games that will happen over the next week. We've got the Warriors versus the Grizzlies, the Kings versus the Dallas Mavericks, who are still alive, which is
Are
pretty
those the two
amazing.
Wednesday games? Did you just mention the two Wednesday
No,
games?
no, no. I just went through the West. The two
Or
Tuesday games are Golden
Tuesday? I'm
State
sorry.
Warriors and the Memphis Grizzlies is at 9 p.m. Central Time, I believe. And then the Eastern Conference game on Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. is the Orlando Magic and the Atlanta Hawks. And then on Wednesday, it is the Kings and Mavs at 9 and the Bulls and Heat at 6:30. I should have said that backwards, but it's how I had it written. I apologize. So,
Well,
uh,
I think of the first four games being played, the one that really stands out, I think, to all viewers is the one including the other team in that Clippers game that we were just talking about,
I
and
was
that's
like,
the
the Bulls
Warriors.
and Heat.
We're going to be, yeah, there you go, there you go. The Warriors at home going to be up against the Grizzlies, and it is kind of bizarre. So this is one of those years. I feel like I just have to say this. This is one of those years where the play-in tournament can actually hurt some teams because, I mean, if you look at the West standings, like there's OKC sitting at the top, and then there's just this cluster of teams who won anywhere between 48 and 52 games that make up 2 through 8, and then you have a drop off 40 games. A sub 500 team is the Kings, followed by the Mavericks, and I mean, it's kind of, I don't know. I don't. I mean, obviously, this is the rule. They're playing by the rules. This is just going to be the way it is. But this is one of those seasons where you feel like it's a disservice to the Warriors and the Grizzlies that they have to like play for their life to stay in the playoffs when they're clearly have been the superior teams to the other two that we just mentioned. Versus, out east, it's more of a cluster of like 500 to sub 500 teams. The only team in the play-in race that it can take claim to 500 is the Orlando Magic. And that's kind of a little bit more what you expect. Maybe better teams than that even, but collectively just like all closer together, and so yeah. So it does kind of stink that I think that between the two teams that we just mentioned, the Warriors and the Grizzlies, those are the two teams that are going to come out of the play-in still. I know that's not such a bold prediction. They're obviously the favorites, but yeah, it does kind of stink that their season is on the line. You could just have one bad game here, and that's all it takes for 48 wins to go out the window. That doesn't happen very often.
But it does now.
It does not.
So yeah, and then the winners of the Tuesday games go on and play the 2 seed because they become the 7 seed, and then the Wednesday game will play the loser of the Tuesday game on Friday night, and the winner of that game will become the 8th seed in both the East and the West. So I don't know if you want to get into any matchups here. Is there any one of these that, like you mentioned, obviously, I think the one that people are going to pay most attention to just because it has the biggest names and probably the best teams is that Warriors Grizzlies one. Do you have any breakdown on the Hawks Magic? Do you want to give any love to the Mavs or the Kings or even your beloved Bulls and the L Heat? Is there anything else that you want to kind of mention jumping around before we get into the meaty playoff matchups?
Huh. Well, the I will say that when we were doing the not that I was making such bold predictions, but when we were doing the power rankings, that this was how the East playoff, or I'm sorry, the East play-in bracket turned out as I expected, and I think I think the Magic are certainly the most complete team out of those. Obviously, the Magic had much higher expectations coming into the season, and some of that was derailed by injuries, and then just sort of bad stretch of games, really, to close the second half of the season, even with their two best players in Paulo Banchero and Franz Wagner coming back, and I think it's just one of those moments that, or it's one of those concepts that really goes to show like how reliant they were on Jalen Suggs being a part of that lineup, who unfortunately will not be able to finish the season here. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Chicago Bulls when they initially constructed the DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Lonzo Ball, Nikola Vucevic lineup, and they were in first place, miraculously in first place at one point early in the season, and then after Lonzo Ball had a injury that ultimately kept him off the court for over 2 years, they just never looked the same again. And so it's just it very much parallels that of like how like important, how essential this one guy is to them. It's this like two-way guard who kind of helps run the floor for them a little bit, but also is just a big anchor of their defense. And so without him there, I expect the Magic to make a huge run. No, but I do expect them to beat the Hawks. It's hard to vote against Trae Young in a playoff setting just because in any of these games that we're talking about here, you can argue that he's the best player and he's the best playoff type player in these situations. But the Hawks are kind of like very weirdly constructed, especially after the trade that they made with the Cavs. And yeah, they weren't making any sort of convincing run towards the end of the season there. So I'm definitely picking the Magic in this game. Um, I mean, I could keep going
I
if you
was going to
want.
say, you're giving away all your predictions early. I thought we were saving those. Like, you're giving away your juiciest bits. I've got some good stuff. I guess I'll have all of the hot takes for the bold predictions later on. Um, what about your Bulls? What are your thoughts of them going up against the Heat? Could they make a run? Could they do something special here? What are your thoughts there? We got to give the East some love.
So
We always talk the West.
yeah, well, the West has just been concentrated with more interesting stories this year. That tends to happen, but it was particularly juicy out west this year, and in large part because of like, I mean,
Don't
honestly,
get
if the
into it.
Sixers just,
Yeah,
yeah, you're
that's
right, you're
true.
right, you're right, you're right, yeah. If the Sixers were a squad this year, I think we'd be talking about the East a lot more. I'd be talking about them a lot differently. But anyway, with the Bulls Heat game, what troubles me as a Bulls fan for that game is the playoff experience that the Heat do bring especially between Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero has had a pretty solid season with Jimmy having a lesser role, in part by his choice and subsequently by Pat Riley's choice. he was able to really show off a little bit this year. And notoriously the Bulls have a hard time defending good backcourt players. High scoring guards tend to light it up against the more recent rendition of the Bulls. I know their squad has changed recently as well, but but speaking of their squad changing recently, I think post trade they have also just had this burst of energy. I mean, the Bulls have actually finished kind of hot. What did they win? Like 7 of the last 10 to win to close the season there. Um, they're really good at taking advantage of those cupcake games down the stretch when everybody's tanking. But yeah, no, I mean, I like what Kobe White's been doing in this lineup. I like what Matas Pitselis has been bringing. He's looking like a real player. And it's been a big enough sample size in the latter part of the season here that I think he's really got something there. And I mean, Nikola Vucevic, he's kind of been trending back towards the mean with some of his shooting, but he has kind of just like outshot his typical averages this year. And in general, just what the Bulls have done with their squad with, now that DeRozan's out of the lineup, we're just going to be this run and gun team. And it's been looking really good for them. I mean, they're one of the quickest teams in the NBA. They're one of the highest 3-point volume teams in the NBA, even if the efficiency is not always there. But I mean, when it's there, they can play on any given night. I've said this before. On any given night, they can play anybody off the court if they're hitting their shots. And with the momentum that they've been gaining, and with how disappointing the Heat season have been, I feel like that's going to sort of carry over into this game. And yeah, I actually like the Bulls better.
All right. Well, then let's get into some of the big matchups here. I think we should stay in the East just because, again, let's give them some love before we ramble on about the West and all the possible matchups that are over there. Uh, I'm actually very interested in your thoughts on this Knicks Pistons 3-6 matchup. Um, you've got this veteran, up and coming Pistons team with the the kind of star laden Thibodeau New York Knicks gritty team. Uh, I think let me this is one of the series I have going 7 games. I think that this is one you might disagree, but I feel like it's going to be a battle. I feel like it's going to be an offensive slugfest. I don't see a whole lot of defense. I think there might come in spurts in specific phases, but I just feel like this one's going to go to distance. What are your thoughts about the Knicks and the Pistons?
Yeah, I don't think that's too bold of a prediction. With everything I've seen from the Knicks this year, they certainly have not met expectations. Now I realize that they're a team that really lost a lot of their depth in the trade, and because of injuries, especially waiting for Mitchell Robinson to come back, and it wasn't just him, but they've been waiting for their depth to finally what depth they do have to finally come back healthy. But yeah, I mean, for any of the lower seeds, the Knicks were definitely the name that they were hoping to draw out of the hat, because ultimately I think that that's the most, not the easiest matchup. Easy is probably the wrong term to use, but the most possible matchup to actually win and make competitive. I'm gonna pick the favorites here. I really am. I think the Knicks feel that I feel like the Knicks feel like they're in the hot seat. And Jalen Brunson, especially this year, he doesn't want to go out early in the playoffs again, back to back years. They don't want to look like the team that plays too hard in the regular season and tuckers out the playoffs and just can't get it done. And so I think I do foresee them winning at least one series. But yeah, it's gonna be an interesting one, and like you said, it's gonna be one of the more competitive ones to start the first round here.
Yeah, and I think, and looking at the other kind of matchup that's solidified is the 4-5 Pacers Bucks matchup. Um, Now, I guess I probably should have, again, one another thing I should have checked. We did not enough research. We don't have any assistants here. Is Lillard out for the season, or was he just out for an extended period of time? Is there a possibility at all that he is in the playoffs? Because I feel obviously that's going to be a big contributing factor to all of this. I'm not aware of what the extent of his injury was. And like we
Mm.
talked about last time, with the Pacers being such a well-rounded team and can kind of put up a fight with almost anybody. So this is one of those with the talk and everything that I keep seeing around Giannis over the last like 2 weeks, and granted, in the kind of stats that he's been putting up, if he can have some assistance and help with that, aside from just a Kyle Kuzma. Every time I see him, I just think of like Pete Davidson with a jersey on. So uh, I don't know if that's offensive to either one of them, and if so, I apologize. But I think that Pacers Bucks matchup is compelling if it was one of those where both teams were at full strength. But I think it's even with if Lillard is sidelined, I still think it's going to be a pretty decent matchup. But um, yeah, I'm just curious to hear what are your thoughts on that series?
So Lillard was another blood clot situation, and
Mm,
so it's not that. So you're seeing updates on. I honestly don't even know why they're posting updates at this point. They're seeing updates on his injury status and how he's participating in drills and such. It's like, well, yeah, he could do non-contact stuff, no
okay.
problem. But
Yeah.
it looks like, it looks like the clot was diagnosed on March 25th, and if you're going with current guidelines, even if it's a provoked DVT, 3 months of therapy is the minimum. And so I don't know that. I mean,
Yeah. That's why I wasn't
I'm
sure
not
if it was
I'm
something
not
where
Lillard's team. The way you keep hearing about folks talking about around the NBA talking about Lillard is like there's a potential for him to come back, but that would literally be him, being treated for the clot, getting like regular ultrasounds to see if it's still there or not. If in the absence of a clot, deciding, well, I'm just going to stop taking the blood thinner then and risk it. But I don't know. I'm not in that room. I'm not one of his doctors by any means, and so I don't know exactly what his treatment course is going to look like. But if you're just doing black and white prediction based on that diagnosis, yeah, I mean
then
he
he's
can't.
out.
Then he's out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
so ultimately, yeah. I mean, I hate to keep going with the favorites here, but yeah, I'm going to side with the Pacers on this one. Another hot team to end the season. Although I'm speaking about the Bucks, who finished the season on an 8-game win streak and about 1,000 Giannis triple doubles. But I did say that. I mean, not that was like a huge outlier of a
Wouldn't it be
prediction, but
exciting?
no. I mean, once Lillard went down, I'm like, I mean, so a lot of people were talking about how the Bucks were just going to slide and slide and slide. And I'm like, I don't think so. I think Giannis is about to go on a tear, and that's exactly what happened. And yeah, I mean, they didn't. I don't think they lost in their seeding at all after Lillard went down. If I'm not mistaken, they kept themselves alive. Um, in spite of the Pistons knocking on the door there, and two
Who
of
they
those wins.
swept, by the way, right at the end of the
Yeah, yeah,
season.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Two of those wins being the last two against the Pistons there. I mean, it was a long shot for the Pistons to win both of those and be able to move up in the season because it would have been tied, so it would have gone down to tiebreakers, and I'm not really sure what those tiebreakers were looking like. So it was possible, but it would have been a stretch there. Um, at any rate, but yeah, I mean, the Pacers are looking too whole compared to a Bucks team who's looking, to have a few too many vacancies here. I mean, I trust Giannis. He's going to be the anytime. I mean, anytime you get two teams where you know one squad, even if they're the underdog, has like by far the best player in the series, is always a chance. It's going to be a dogfight, but yeah, I just foresee the depth, the creativity, the speed of the Pacers with Halliburton running that offense. I think it's just going to be a little bit too much for the Bucks.
All right. Well, I think we should hop over out west and cover the other 4-5-3-6 matchups quickly, and then we'll get into some predictions. Um, so we
Wait,
did
which
kind of touch.
predictions are we going to get into next? I got to know that because I did all this without saying who I thought who was gonna win the game 2 of the East play-in. I don't know if you want me to hold on that, but
Let's hold on that. We're going to go through the whole thing because I've got like it set up where our play-in
I see.
predictions
I
go
see.
with who
The
our
mastermind
matchups are.
here.
Yes.
There's just a
So
bunch of numbers, Matrix style. There's a bunch of numbers just dancing around in your head right now,
yes,
and I'm just trying to
exactly.
keep up. All right, got it, got it, got it.
Uh, so we hit on the Nuggets and Clippers a little bit. Was there anything else you wanted to touch on there before we jump into the Lakers and Timberwolves at 3-6 out west?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Let me ask you this one then. How do you think Jokic would be matched up on? Like, do you see them kind of the Clippers just using Zubats against Jokic one on one, or are they going to kind of play some sort of a zone? How do you think that they're going to defend Jokic and be able to try to stop him and his ability to kind of distribute the ball?
They would love Zubats on Jokic. He is definitely one of those players that tends to give him the most trouble historically.
Okay.
And maybe it's just like the European style of play. He's just kind of
Mm.
like cut from a similar cloth. I feel honestly, I will say this time and time again, but I feel like European players, in part, one of the reasons they're good at basketball is just because soccer was the bigger sport for them growing up, and so they just understand ball movement so well. But but yeah, no, I mean, I think Zubats will probably give him some trouble. There's no question about it. I mean, that entire Clippers defense, they've been a monster this year. I mean, if Zubats is not on Jokic, obviously they're going to try to switch him off and give Jokic a little bit more passing room, but I feel like Zubats can also hide on Aaron Gordon a little bit. He can hide on Russell Westbrook a little bit. They have enough non 3-point shooting players out there that yeah, even it's I don't know. I think it's going to be harder for them to capitalize on the switches. Obviously, nobody's trying to go up against Kawhi. Nobody's trying to go up against Derrick Jones Jr. Uh, Chris Dunn is going to give him tons of trouble. So who are they going to target then? Harden when the starter's on the floor, but after that they got to wait for
For
Bogdanovich to show
Bogdan.
to check in before they can do any damage.
Poor Bogdan.
Yeah,
Oh,
silky smooth shooter that guy. But yeah,
yeah, amazing shooter.
he's not your ideal pick in a playoff rotation. There's a reason the Hawks were eager to get off of him.
All right. Well, we're definitely going to keep a close eye on that one. Uh, and then obviously, I will try my best to not just go off on this one. But yes, so the 3-6, we got the Lakers and the Timberwolves. Uh, I think this is a fun matchup. I think this is get your popcorn ready. Like everybody wants to see the dunks and the threes. Like this is the Hollywood matchup
Bring your
everybody
ass.
wants.
Bring your
Yeah.
ass.
I can't remember if I sent you or somebody else uh, the intro to starting five again. Like that's going to start circulating where LeBron's like, if there's somebody that's going to stop me, and then it's Ant in his Lamborghini. Like I ain't afraid of anybody. I'm going to take it on LeBron. So you're going to be seeing that make the loop over the next week just because of those two. Um, but outside of just the glitz and glam and the dunks of this one, where do you see the matchups being key that are going to determine who wins this matchup?
So this is tough. I mean, I do think that the T Wolves have enough guys to bother Luca. I think that's who I would be most concerned about is how do we disrupt Luca's game the most? Because I think LeBron's the same story across the board. It's like yeah, there are certain matchups that he would not prefer these days, but like ultimately he's gonna reach his potential on any given night and what he can contribute in a playoff type setting, which is quite a bit still. And he's going to push the envelope on winning every single night. He's not going to make it easy, but in terms of somebody who's just orchestrating the offense, really making the whole thing pop, because defensively as good as the Lakers have been able to show up, um, there are some holes there, and um, in particular, they give up a lot of 3-point shooting. So I'm actually about to talk myself out of that one, saying, well, the T-Wolves might be the team to give up the 3-point shots on. But no, I do think they have enough guys to bug Luka and make it so that he's not going to dominate every game. I don't think it's going to be like a sweep or anything like that. I don't think it's going to be a 5-game series one way or the other. But I yeah, I'm gonna give the nod to the team that almost made it to the finals last year, who I think has a little bit more continuity, who is a bigger team, um, who I think they got a lot there. I mean, both teams have been hot down the stretch, but yeah, I think there's just a little bit more fire in the T Wolves, as many holes as they have in their game, and yeah, I foresee them upsetting the Lakers in this one.
Okay. Who who do you think is going to be primarily matched up against Luca? Who's the Minnesota defender? Is it Randall? Is it McDaniels? Is it Edwards? Like, is it Naz Reid? Like, who do you think is going to be matched up against Luca the most? Or I should say, who's going to be the best defender against him?
Yeah, that's a good. I'm assuming they would start Vanderbilt on Luca and mix in a little Nikhil Alexander Walker there as well. I think yeah, I think that would be just the length of those two. I think is going to be enough to be able to shut down. I can't even say it's shut down, but just make his game feel a little bit more awkward, just enough to
Minimize.
minimize by being able to close down um, his favorite him taking his favorite shots and shrink the passing lanes a little bit. So we
Do you
sorry, go
I'm gonna
ahead.
say, do you think it benefits the Timberwolves with at least like Chris Finch being able to have played him in the Western Conference Finals last year? And now, again, he's removed. So it is just, we're game planning. Obviously, you're game planning for the Lakers, and they got the LeBron and plenty of other great players as well. But do you think that there's pieces and things that he can take away from last year that he can incorporate and at least helps give them different ideas and tactics that they might have not had they played, was it 6, 7 games against them last year in a playoff
Yeah.
setting, and kind of can understand some of the nuances of his game a little bit more?
Yeah. So I will say this: if the Lakers had the more complete team, I would be picking them. I wouldn't even think twice about it because, yes, Luca has historically done well against Rudy Gobert teams.
Mm-hmm.
He once he can isolate him on the pick and roll, he just really keeps him on his heels. He like seems to force him to make the wrong decision almost every time, which is like very un-Gobert like. It got to the point where they were, I mean, last year in the playoffs, like down the stretch, the T-Wolves were sitting them a lot because yeah, they needed something that they needed matchups that made more sense. Um, in this case though, I really just think that this Lakers squad is going to run out of steam. I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll be a la Miami Heat, who's made 2 finals runs in the past. Also with Gabe Vincent on those squads, by the way. And it'll just be like, I mean, granted, it's like the much more talent dense version of it with Luca and LeBron, and I guess to some degree Austin Reeves being up at the top there. But yeah, maybe they'll just be able to scrap it together well enough to actually win a couple rounds. Um, but yeah, I'm going to continue to put the faith in the fact that the T Wolves they found something down the stretch of the second half of the season here. They made the Julius Randle experiment seem to work, and I don't know. I just think individually they have enough really solid defensive players that when the game has to slow down a little bit, when it's time to grind it out, that I think that they will prevail. They will out hustle this Lakers team.
All right. Excellent. Uh, let's get into some predictions then. Now we will really get into it. I at least wanted to kind of touch on a few of the ones that we were set on, and we can kind of, and at least we're at 50 minutes. We're not over an hour. Uh, so let's start with we're going to start with those Tuesday games. Let's get into some play-in predictions. We're going to start out east. Uh, the 7-8, the Magic and the Hawks. Who do you have going up and being matched up against the Boston Celtics? Who's winning?
I think
Magic
I think I
Hawks.
already picked that one, but yeah, I'm picking the Magic for
We're going.
sure.
You picked a lot of them already, so we're gonna go back through them and make sure. And I will accompany my picks. So you pick the Magic.
That's right.
All right, I did as well. So that ends up with an Orlando Boston 2-7 matchup. And then out west, we've got Golden State and Memphis. Who are you taking there?
So this is a tough one. I mean, this is a big topic in and of itself because Golden State has never won a playing game. 0-3. They had they had two chances the first time around. I believe they lost to the Lakers and subsequently the Grizzlies in the eighth seed game, and that was a few years back. And then last year they lost to the Kings. And everybody, I mean, between a few years ago when they were up against the Grizzlies and last year when they were up against the Kings, those were both games where everybody thought like this is an ideal matchup for Golden State. They're in. They're a sure thing. It's that championship DNA is going to carry them. But I do have some pause with picking them because yeah, I mean it has they have forced me to lose my trust, my faith. And then so not only that, but in a similarly styled game, granted this was pre Jimmy Butler, but it's just a similar theme that we see in these recent years with the Warriors in the in-season tournament this year. They had a semifinal up against the Rockets, and it ended up being a super low-scoring, close game. And it was like a controversial ending where it ended on free throws, and the Rockets prevailed. But 91-90, that game ended, and it just had that same exact. It brings you right back to watching them in a play-in type setting where they just like cannot seem to close in these one-off games. And that said, there's a lot of reasons to pick against the Warriors, but I mean, I am going to go with the favorites here. I am in large part because the Grizzlies, who you think of as like a high depth team, have kind of lost a little bit of that going down into the season here, between trading off Jake LaRavia, which I said back then was a move that confused me. It sounded like that was just about shaving some pennies. And then now with Brandon Clark being out for the season, yet again, not being able to join the Grizzlies for playoffs. And then on top of that, Jalen Wells. Jalen Wells is out with this recent injury when he was. That was something that we didn't talk about in the last
Oh, his
podcast. That
dunk.
was,
Yeah.
yeah. Just that. I mean, I forgot who made the play on him, or who fouled him, but it was just sloppy. I don't think it was ill intentioned, but it was so sloppy, and they ended up losing one of their starters as a result. So that's like two of their like core players who they were going to play in these playoff minutes that are just out now, down the stretch of the season. So I like the Grizzlies. I've always enjoyed watching them, especially this current rendition. I think that there's still hope for this team in the future, but I do not think that they're going to be the seventh seed. I will say, if they do end up taking that game against the Warriors, I think that the Warriors will be in the playoffs. I don't think that they're going to end this play-in tournament with going 0 for 5 historically. So they're going to win one of the games, but my pick is Warriors. It's going to be a slugfest, though. Sorry, I gotta say, I think it's going to be a shootout between Ja and Steph. Was the last time they played? That was when Steph dropped 52 and Ja had like 43 or something like that. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yep. I also have the Warriors winning this one. I think I agree with a lot of the stuff that you said on the reasons why they haven't played well in the play-in, but they haven't played with Jimmy yet. I think they've got playoff Jimmy, who's going to give them some sort of boost, whatever that might be. Um, and I think they're going to get into the playoffs and take on the Rockets. So they will be
Yeah.
the 7th seed.
But you can argue that this game against the Clippers was the same type of game. It was the play-in game before the play-in games, and
No, I
could
was
not
sitting here thinking
they
like,
could not seal it.
Could they lose 3 straight play-in games? Essentially, like, could they all of a sudden just the wheels come completely off? And like you said, we've seen it before, so maybe not 3 in a row, but 2 years ago, 2 in a row. So, but I don't know what it is. In my head, I'm sitting here thinking, like, is it this Olympic fever that I'm still like? Steph has still got me the tinglies of thinking like he can carry this team, regardless. But obviously, he doesn't have KD, Ant, and LeBron on the team with him, so that
Yeah.
makes it a little bit different. So, well, then let's get on to the Wednesday games. Let's stay out west. We've got the 9 seeded Sacramento Kings hosting the 10 seeded Dallas Mavericks. You've been high on the Mavericks since the Luka trade. Even with their up and down stuff, we need to get you like a Nico Harrison #1 fan club T-shirt or a vice president cap. Um, for the amount of slack that he gets from everybody else, you've at least defended him a little bit as far as the wheelings and dealings as being for the future. And here we are sitting now in the present with the Mavericks in the playoffs, which I don't think a lot of people thought was going to happen the day after the Luka trade. I think most people thought, oh, Maverick season is done. Like, cash it in. Like, they're going into the lottery.
Well, maybe not so
Nope.
much after the Luka trade, but after Kyrie went down,
Yeah, well, it was like a succession
they
of
were
things in
still they were
about a
still
week.
they were still going to be. I mean, in theory, anyway, with the squad that they had, they were still going to be like a high level playoff team. They should have been anyway, but literally can't keep anybody on the floor. Anybody they have left anyway.
Yeah. So, Sacramento versus the Mavericks. I'm curious to hear what you have to say about that one.
Boy, this is going to be a real nail biter, real excited one. It's going to truly determine the outcome of the rest of the Western Conference playoffs. I mean,
This is an important
I
basketball
guess
game.
podcast mic to my head, I will pick the Mavericks. I will. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to say that they just have a lot of fire right now, and I think they want to see themselves make a little bit of noise, advance anywhere that they can with how disappointing of a season. It's like it's not their fault that it's been this disappointing of a season, but they are carrying this weight. So I think that these players really want to try to give the fans something, give themselves something anyway before the end of the season. But that is to say, I don't think either of these squads are going to make it into the playoffs.
I agree with that statement. Uh, and sadly, I have to agree with you. I have the Mavs picked as well. I think kind of for similar reasons. It's that same, like, I don't know why I keep thinking like not the lovable losers, but like the team that goes on a long losing streak, and all of a sudden everybody thinks like, oh, they're. It feels like they want to play spoiler, and they're going to play spoiler to the Kings. Like they're going to play a spoiler to whoever they can, and with a game that they have in hand, I just kind of see that happening with, like you said, just they're going to be playing for the fans. I think they're going to have, even though they're not going to be at home. Um, but I think that they're going to do some damage here and take out the Kings, and then we'll probably give the Grizzlies a ride for their money, which we will talk about in a second. But
Yeah.
then go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say. At the very least, talking actual basketball. I mean, the Mavs do have some guys to throw at the Kings, in particular their big man, and with Demontis being the the center point of that offense. I do think he's going to make it kind of tough. I mean, DeRozan really slows things down. Levine's been playing awesome since he's
Yeah, I
gotten
was
to
going
the
to say
Kings.
if that's the one thing that could change up all of this is if he keeps playing like he's been playing, like he's it's been easily 30 plus points in the last 3 or 4 games, like easily. And he's just been dominating games. And it was actually going to be like one of my potential trivia questions was, would you rather have a hot Levine versus like a cold Giannis or something? Uh, some sort of would you rather, just because I was like, man, Levine has been playing out of his mind, and just the confidence that he has in his jump shot. And when he starts getting that, and then the fact that he can put people off balance and then get to the hole, so he has been playing very well. Maybe not the Kings in general, but at least he's been putting up some really good games.
Yeah, yeah, and we all know that DeRozan is a one of the best clutch players in the NBA. So between those two, it's they could yeah, they can, I mean, again, they can light it up. They can light it up against somebody on any given night. But we'll see. I mean, again, sure, pick the Kings, pick the Mavs. I'll pick in the Mavs, but
All right, so then we jump across. We talked about this one a little bit earlier. We got the nine-seeded Bulls hosting the Miami Heat. We did kind of jump into the nits and gritties of this one. Uh, do I want to put you on the spot for just picking a prediction right now and going, or do you have any more uh, context you want to put on this game?
no, I think I gave it all last time I was talking about the Bulls. I think, yeah, I do. I mean, the Heat are never gonna this what's left of this Heat team is never gonna make it easy on any given night. But yeah, I just like the Bulls right now. I think in this type of setting, they're hungry. They're looking to have some fun, if nothing else. They're gonna be like the kids who feel like they have nothing to play for, and or nothing to lose rather. And so I think that's gonna give them a little bit of a mental edge.
Yeah, no, I this feels pre-planned, but it's not. But I also picked the Bulls. Um, but to your surprise, I picked the Bulls to win 2 games in the play-in. I have them beating
Me
the Hawks.
too. Me
Oh
too.
no!
Actually, for what it's worth, in case you guys think I'm lying, when we were doing our power rankings, I was starting to do some play in playoff predictions just for fun to add a plus one to that, and I already made that pick. I picked the Bulls to win the 9-10 game and to beat the Hawks. I said this already. It exists. It's in writing, my friend.
Well, that's fine. I wasn't trying to be sneaky. You're a Bulls fan. You have the memorabilia behind you. To me, you had made a few points, and it's like, yes, they've been hot, and that's all that the play-in tournament is a team gets hot. And I think right now they can kind of have that momentum. They have nothing to lose, and so besides a game, and so I think they have a little bit more that they can spice up and take out the Hawks. Yeah, I think the other day I was watching some of the Hawks games, and with Young not on the court, it was like Steph not on the court with the Warriors, but it almost felt a little worse. Just the fact, and it wasn't like a knock on Dyson Daniels, but the fact that he had to be ball dominant point guard and had to be the one to create everything when he wasn't on the floor, and there wasn't much help on the offensive end outside of that. And it was more like somebody had to drive in and kick to do anything, and he was the only one that could actually get into the paint. And it so that really had me worried as far as their like per possession kind of game when it comes to the playoffs. And yes, like you mentioned, Trey Young is an amazing player, and he'll probably play almost or all of the game. So there's probably not going to be much time where he's not on the floor for the Hawks to be able to have that discrepancy or kind of pull back against them. But yeah, that just made me kind of worried. And it's not like that the Bulls are all of a sudden going to do something strategically, but I just think they have the chance to be to have a little bit more firepower and can just kind of maybe in a couple nights just get hot and kind of ride into this thing and get a front row seat to the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah,
So
that'll help with their travel days a little bit for sure. But the, the good news is there will only be four of them at that point.
yeah. So then that leaves us with the final play-in game out west. Obviously, I think we both are in agreement. Um, we should hope that Memphis can handily dispatch the Mavericks, as we have both predicted. Um, but yeah, do you? It, obviously, anything can happen. But do you think that they're like you sometimes are a betting man? Um, are you ever
Mhm.
putting on money on the Mavericks to get into that eighth seed?
I'm still taking Memphis to take the eighth seed. Yeah, I think the standings are gonna stay the way that they are, and again, like you said, anything can happen. But no, I'm sticking Warriors at 7, Grizzlies at 8.
All right. Well, I'm gonna rapid fire the rest of these matchups off to you, and I want a winner and how many games.
Oof.
So either I can go through these, I will give you the prediction first because I have all of these written out, and then you can decide. Does that sound at least I can give you some sort of leeway or a minute or two to think it over? Uh,
I mean, either way, you could put me on the spot. That's fine. Make
all
it
right.
more
So the way that
interesting.
uh, since we essentially had the exact same picks through this, this at least sets up the playoff prediction easy because then I don't have to figure out who you picked. It's exactly what I have here. So I'll ask you this: do you want to start out east or west?
Got to start East.
All right. So this sets up the 1-8 matchup of the Cavaliers and the Bulls. Who do you have in that, and how many games?
Cavs in 4.
Oof, I've got Cavs in 5. I got the Bulls winning game 1. They go on this mega hot streak and get that first one and then get swept. A gentleman's sweep. Um, so then that leads to the 2-7. We've got Boston versus Orlando. What do you
You
got
can
there?
literally you can literally have pinned uh probably. I mean, you could have thrown 5 of the East playoff teams in that 7 spot, and I would pick Boston in 4.
I've got at least competitive. Boston in 6. All right. Knicks and Pistons.
So as we were talking
Oh,
about, hey yo, hey, you're already thinking about how good of a pick it's going to be.
yeah.
Um, as we talk about, this one's going to get interesting. It's I'm going to pick Knicks in 6 on this one.
Oof. I got Pistons in 7 is what I chose. So we'll see. That's our first big difference. Uh, and then the 4-5, we've got Pacers and the Bucks. I'm curious. I have the Pacers in 6.
I was going to say I'm going to go tight on this one. I think there's going to be some close games. I foresee the Pacers pulling them out. I'm going Pacers in 5.
Ooh. All right. All right. So that ends up having it's the Cavaliers versus the Pacers in the conference semifinals, and at least for me, it's Boston versus Detroit. For you, it's Boston versus the Knicks. So those will be good matchups. We'll get to those when we get to them, and we will check in on our predictions next week when we're midway through these series. Uh, so out west, we've got OKC Memphis is the 1-8. And it's funny. I feel like this was the one of the matchups I had hoped for, like midway through the season, and now it's like I don't like. I almost feel bad for the Grizz. I feel like they're just going to get diced up. I've got the Thunder in 4.
Yeah, basically copy and paste my answer from Boston to OKC, and whoever they were going to face, I think, yeah, four game series.
So the 2-7 is the Rockets and the Warriors. This is a curious one. I wasn't sure because if we had the Warriors in, we get Jimmy is going to be doing some stuff. Draymond's going to will Draymond get suspended for a game just like old times? Like, would there be some sort of mix up? This Houston team, kind of this band of nobodies, but I think they just keep on winning. And I have Houston in 7.
No kid, that's exactly what my pick was going to be. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, everybody's got their eye on the Houston game because they think of them as a weak 2 seed, and so. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry, folks. Oh, that was a long one.
Just a boring,
So
a sleepy
yeah,
2 seed.
this conversation is boring. I'm boring me. No, but a lot of people kind of foresee like some of these. I mean, really fill in whichever play-in potential team that we were just talking about. Any of these near 50-win teams that were forced to play in the play-in. But yeah, a lot of people really like the Warriors in this matchup, and I'm not gonna fall victim to my emotions, and I'm gonna say, even though it's gonna be competitive, I think that the Rockets are ultimately the more well-rounded team and the better defensive team. And even though they don't have as much experience or Steph Curry's on their side, yeah, I think that's gonna be just enough for them to pull it off.
Nice. Did you pick how many games that was?
7. So
Okay.
we're
Uh,
aligning so far.
okay. We've got the Lakers, Timberwolves. Uh, I'm sorry, Shannon. Uh, it's not going to be. I wish I would have prepared a rhyme. Um, I don't have any nickels or dimes. Uh, Wolves in 7. No Lakers in 5. Wolves in 7.
I'm giving you an extra game on that one. I'm gonna say Wolves in 6.
Nice. I I just think that it's going to be like you mentioned one of the games before. I feel like this is going to be a gritty, like there's going to be a fight. There's going to be this is going to be one of those. It's just going to people are going to be so sick of each other by game 5, and it's just going to be a slugfest. Um, that leaves us with the final 4 or 5, the Nuggets and the Clippers. Um, this was the hardest one for me to kind of decide like what's going to happen in this series. Um, and thankfully, some of the answers that you gave earlier kind of reinforced what I had written down. So I have Clippers in 6.
Hmm.
I have them taking out the Nuggets.
I'm gonna go same number of games, except I'm gonna pick a different winner here. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be an edgy series. It's gonna be fun. I almost went Nuggets in 5 actually on this one. I just feel with the. I mean, this Nuggets squad is not. They're not bad. They're really not bad. And for the most part, they're quite similar to the championship squad that they had, which everybody talks about like, oh, it was an easier playoffs. They had the runway set up for them. Yeah, well they only lost 4 games in that playoffs. I mean, they dominated that playoffs. So I feel like given the opportunity, um, if they got if their heads in the right spot and they're not thinking like a playing team like they were looking at like they were looking after the All-Star break. I still think that they're going to be a really tough team to beat. I just think, as scary as the Clippers have been this season, as much length as they have, yeah, I'll stick with 6 just because I think the Clippers are going to do well enough to make it a very, very, very competitive series.
All right. Well, we both have it sets up a Houston Minnesota conference semifinals, and we're split on who the Thunder are going to match up with over the Nuggets and the Clippers. So this is going to be exciting. I think we've got the play-ins start tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
and then from there, we've got some exciting basketball. We'll see. I'm going to have to get Bobby excited for the Wednesday matchup since he seems to not like, oh, I don't care who's going to play. So I will make sure everybody that I've got a cattle prod that he is excited about those games and going.
What are you going to brand
We,
me with? Is it going to say play-in tournament?
no, it'll say like that Bucket Bros logo in the corner.
Oh, there we go.
We'll get you
Perfect.
with
Perfect.
it. Yep. uh, anything else to add? Any other tidbits? Has there been any? I, I haven't paid attention. I don't know if there's like a Black Monday like the NFL where all of a sudden the day after the season there's firings of coaches or anything like that. Or is there anything set up for the draft? Any uh, big conditional picks that ended up being moved about because of some last wins or losses over the last couple of days of the season?
Well, I think there's been enough coaching firings thus far, but there has been at least one more. Uh, the Suns fired Mike Budenholzer on the first of a 5-year contract. It is the it is the oh Lord, is it the third coach in 3 seasons? Did I get that right? All who are still making money on their current on the previous contracts. They're just that Suns. I mean, I feel bad for Suns fans right now. It's got to feel pretty gloom right now. That front office or that ownership rather is just like throwing money down a well. And with just there's no light. There's no light. Where's your way out?
When's I was going to say, when is their draft pick structure? Like, do they have any picks in the next like 5 or 6 years?
If I'm not mistaken, they do not have control of their draft until 2032. Either the pick is outgoing or it's a swap.
Okay. Yeah,
If
that's
I'm
what because
not
I'm like
mistaken.
because I feel like the Beal trade took a bunch, and then you did the Durant trade. So it's like,
Well,
what
the
do you have
Durant trade
left?
took a bulk of them. The Beal trade they got away with not. I think it was mostly just swaps on the Beal trade instead
Okay.
of picks outright. Um, but yeah, they've got a lot of outgoing picks, and I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty sure they don't control any of their picks until
Hmm.
2032.
I
But then
can't
once
like as a
2032
Wolves
becomes
fan.
tradable,
Yeah.
once 2032 becomes tradable, this offseason, that's probably out the door too. Yeah.
See ya. Oh, that's funny. Well, yeah. We will. When does the first set of awards come out? Do you know, or which one is the first one? Is there like Coach of the Year comes out first, or Rookie of the Year? And I would assume one of those would be coming within the next like week or so.
That is a great question, and
And we
I
will
could
be
bore you
right
guys
back
with
with you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I could bore you guys with googling it myself. I'm
We'll
sure
be
it's
back
posted
after
somewhere.
these messages. Uh,
I'm sure
no,
it's
we
posted
will save.
somewhere the exact schedule for the awards.
No, we will save that until next time. I'm sure that we will be much closer and have much better ideas about when those things will be announced, um, as well as probably starting to get some draft teaser stuff. Now that some of the teams aren't playing, their focus shifts to the draft. Um, but we are focused on the playoffs, and that's all that we were have time to deal with right now. So um, I have nothing else. Do you have anything else before we go pass out and or do work or feed a baby or whatever it is that we end up doing post podcast.
Yeah, sorry it was such a quick one this week, folks. But
They're
yeah,
all the
we had to get
same.
it in. We had to get
Yeah,
it in. We had to get it in before the first play-in game. So I'm out
let's
here,
give it
out east, staying up late for y'all, just so that we can keep talking basketball.
give you one last look at the SoFi play-in tournament for the
Learn it,
NBA.
memorize it, understand it.
Yeah, the NBA playoffs presented by Google. We are going to get this right because we want your sponsorship money. If you are looking, if you are a business owner, make sure that you hit us up. We want to promote you. Um, but yeah, otherwise, make sure you guys go check out all of our social media clips on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, probably not Pinterest, but X, and wherever else that you are on social media. Make sure you go check it. We've got audio podcasts on Spotify and on Apple. Make sure you go and check out all of the long form podcast stuff that's on YouTube. We are cutting this up into medium clips and shorter clips so we can give you all of the basketball that you are looking for. Um, but we appreciate all of you guys who are subscribing, following along, commenting. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We appreciate it. And we look forward to, like Bobby said, bringing you guys more basketball content day in, day out, because it is a tough job, but somebody has to do it. It might as well be us. We've got to work that NBA League Pass. Got to make sure we get that money's worth.
There you go. There you go. I need to pay for my league pass next year. Well, as Ronnie mentioned, I'm glad you have all that. I'm glad you have all that in your mind. Where to find us, and just do what he says. And thanks for tuning in again. We appreciate y'all.
All right, everybody. That's the Bucket Bros. Until next time, we'll see you.
Ciao.